Hello and welcome to the Headache Doctor podcast, where on this podcast, it's our mission to educate and empower everyone with headaches and migraines so that you can break free from a life of fear of your next headache or migraine and dependence on medication. In today's podcast, we're going to be talking all about the SAM device. Now, you've probably heard the little ad that disrupts the podcast the last week or so. And that's because our SAM device is a device that allows you to get to the underlying source of most headaches and migraines from the comfort of your own home. And it's a product that I developed, and we are now selling it on Amazon. And we have enough product and quantity that we can get it out to you, the listener. And so what I want to do is share the story of how the SAM device came to be and provide clarity around what it is. Because it's something that has been helpful for lots of people. We've sold, at this point, we've sold hundreds of them. I mean, a lot of people that have interacted with us, mainly in person, but then also virtually, we send it out to people that work with us. And we've had a ton of really good feedback. One of the main questions, and I'm sure for you, the listener, the podcast listener, is how can you, you being Novera, the headache doctor, myself, how can I help you when we're not in the same state, when I can't physically address the problems that you're experiencing? Now, we have people reach out all the time, and we take them through our virtual discovery visit, and that's a half an hour, and they're basically sharing their story with us. Some of you have probably done that. Some of you maybe have gone through our virtual program, things like that. But the virtual discovery visit, at that call, we oftentimes get the question of, well, I'm looking for someone in my area that does what you do. And it's perfectly reasonable for people to want to find a provider in their area that can provide a similar or the same treatment as what I'm defining. And even largely in this podcast, the tone is to pursue someone that's going to help you with your neck, okay? And so finding a provider, whether that's a physical therapist, chiropractor, in your area that can help with your neck, yes, we want to do that. Now, oftentimes when I'm on one of these discovery calls, people will ask if I know someone near them, or if there's benefit to the virtual, or if they should just try to find someone that's close in their area. And the reason I'm bringing up the virtual is because the way that we are able to address the physical side of this problem with a lot of these people that aren't in Colorado, that aren't able to come access us in person or aren't traveling to us, is through the SAM device. And so I'll talk about the SAM device. I want to make sure that it's understood, though, that it's an adjunct to what we do. It's an element of what we do. It's not, obviously, it's not the full picture. It's something that is very effective if used the right way and understood correctly. And so this podcast serves as like, if you bought the SAM device, you're like, I don't really know what to do with it, this is the podcast for you. If you're someone who's heard about the SAM device or maybe looked it up on the website, this is the podcast to like have a better, deeper understanding of how it may be helpful for you. And then just understanding like, okay, what does it mean to find relief at home? I'll dive into that as well, because even our virtual program with sending someone the SAM device, we have a lot more confidence in that even than sending you to a provider locally. And so virtual coaching and making the changes to lifestyle, incorporating specific exercises, and just educating, providing you with the insights into your own situation, can unlock a lot of those barriers that you're finding, and then you start seeing relief. So a lot of it, like we talked about on this podcast, is empowerment. I want to empower you to start taking action, seeing change. And it's not uncommon for people to tell me that, whether it's on the discovery call or we had an Instagram message that was basically like just people getting a hold of this podcast, having the information, and finding the relief that they're looking for. And I don't even necessarily interact with a lot of these people. And so it's an amazing thing. And I'm glad that people are finding this podcast and appreciating it, and light bulbs are going off. So anyway, the SAM device. So it was probably about 8 years ago that I was working on a patient who was dealing with headaches, and I was focusing on her neck, restoring mobility, and specifically in the upper part of the neck. Now, the techniques that we use to help improve rotation specifically to the first and second bone in the neck, so C1 and C2 should rotate about 45 degrees each direction. And most people with headaches and migraines, that's not moving like it should. And so we apply pressure. We take one hand and we, with a firm pressure, we stop, let's say C2 from moving. And then by turning the head, the other hand's on the head and the head's rotating, C1 is rotating, we block C2, and so there's a specific stretch through C1 and C2, okay? That's called a joint mobilization. Joint mobilizations are performed by physical therapists really anywhere on the body, anywhere that there's a joint, of course. And so joint mobilizations are intended to improve mobility and reduce pain. There's different grades of joint mobilization. So like a gentle mobilization can like lubricate and act as like a pain relieving technique. And then more firm is going to allow for actual potential changes in the available range of motion of the joint, impacting taking up slack in the ligaments that surround the joint, and so the joint capsule itself. And then you could even take it to what we'd call the grade 5. So grade 1 to 5. Grade 5 is like the chiropractic adjustments, the manipulations. And so people are fairly aware of what you'd call adjustments, or chiropractors would call adjustments. In the PT world, we call manipulation. But the intent of the technique that I was using on this patient was to improve mobility in the upper part of the neck. So it was a grade 3 or 4 mobilization, so intended to improve mobility. There's also some therapeutic effect to it. Now, in this scenario, the patient was finding relief. So going from, I don't remember exactly what it was, but maybe a couple headaches or migraines a week, and finding that she, her headaches had largely gone away, not completely, and she was worried about them coming back. So she knew she needed to stick with this. She needed something to help her mobilize her neck. But the caveat was that she was moving out of the country. She was a missionary. And so what she asked me was, is there a device, something I can buy that replicates the amount of pressure, the force, and this technique? Because getting movement to the upper part of my neck has been the key. And it seems like this is really effective if I could find something, a tool that allows me to do this on my own. And that felt like a reasonable question, because the pressure that we're applying to C2 and then mobilizing, rotating the head so that there's that specific stretch, it does take a level of skill, but to some extent, it's applying pressure in a specific spot and then moving the head, right? So I went on this quest. I researched, Googled, scoured the internet looking for a device that allowed the head to turn passively, though. So not actively. It had to be passive, because if you're rotating your neck on something like a massage ball, or there's something called an oxypivot. It's basically a mold of a physical therapist's hands in this traction sort of setup. So like the fingertips are pressing into that suboccipital area. That's something that a lot of people use to put pressure back there. Or like 2 tennis balls put into a sock. That's something else that people will use to apply pressure to that suboccipital area. And then oftentimes they'll move their head or neck in different directions in order to apply that pressure to those specific spots where they feel the tension's built up. And so the idea is, for our purposes, or my purposes of trying to replicate what I'm doing with this patient, is to have the head turn, but passively. And the difference is if you actively rotate, your muscles are going to activate, right? So you turn your head to the right in order to put pressure more so on the right side of the upper part of your neck. Those muscles will activate on the right side, okay? Now we want to get to the joint itself. We want the joint to feel that pressure and feel the stretch so that we can start getting movement back. Because if all we do is apply a little bit of pressure to the muscle itself, that can be therapeutic, but ultimately the joint itself is typically the angry part of the headache or the migraine. And so by actively turning, we're engaging that muscle group, and an active muscle sort of kicks out any pressure. So the pressure is directly on the muscle, but the muscle is sort of the guardian that blocks us from getting into the joint itself. And so the key is to apply pressure to the joint. And so when we're working on someone, it's really important that we apply the pressure firmly in the right spot, but then we're using the other hand to turn the head and apply a counter force so that there's a stretch through the upper part of the neck. And that has to be relaxed. If someone's fighting us, if they're guarded, or if they're pushing actively against us, we're not going to get the same therapeutic effect. And this is known. I mean, if you have a massage, you go to a massage therapist and you're actively fighting them, I mean, the massage isn't going to be as therapeutic. The massage is intended to reduce muscle tension. We're wanting to get even deeper than the muscle tissue and restore mobility, okay? So the intent is to get to the joint, which requires us to have a relaxed neck. So the head needs to be turning, and then pressure needs to be placed through the upper part of the neck. Now, just so you're aware, I did not come up with these techniques. Joint mobilizations have been around for a long, long time. Now, there are things that have been sort of repackaged, rebranded. There's continuing education courses for physical therapists that, again, are repackaged, rebranded. But a lot of it, like, there's nothing new under the sun. So it's just sort of, it's material that's condensed into a way that's easy to understand and then put into a specific scenario. So in this case, we're taking the principles of joints needing to move, applying it to the neck, seeing results with headaches. And now we're taking a step further and saying, okay, can we replicate this with something you can use at home? Of course, that's like safe and relatively easy to use. So, all right, that's long-winded to say that on our search for a device for this patient, had to find something that turned the head without the neck having to activate, and it applied pressure to the upper part of the neck in order to stretch specifically the upper part of the neck. So long story short, I couldn't find anything. There's something called a patent search. And so any device that has a patent that's on the market is on the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office website. And so if you do a patent search, which I did 8 years ago, which you can hire attorneys to do this stuff. But back then I was fresh out of school and yeah, was just trying to get out of debt and didn't want to spend any money on attorney fees. So, but I had time. So I did my own patent search and couldn't find any patents on anything like this. The only thing that was on the market, and still to today outside of the SAM device, are traction devices or massage devices. So you kind of have these two categories. You have massage, things that are intended to ease muscle tension. And the SAM device does function in a similar way. It's applying pressure to the body. So technically it would fall into like the massage category, but even though we're getting a little bit deeper than that. But we have massage devices. Think of like a Theragun, a massage percussion gun, or you've got traction to the neck. And so a lot of like headache type or neck pain devices are more traction related, either whether it's like a balloon that you pump up and it sort of increases the gap between your shoulders and your neck, or it's like a hammock type thing where you hang it onto the door and it's like pulling your neck up to provide traction. Or there's what's called the Saunders traction unit, which is a traction, like a whole device. It costs, I think it's like $500 or $600, so not inexpensive. And that allows you, again, to take some of the stress off of the neck. And so we've got traction devices, we've got massage devices. Like those largely are the two dominant categories for patents. And so when it came to devices for the neck, improving mobility, like basically nothing out there. And that was true with like searching Amazon, searching Google, searching products that are actually listed outside of what's on the Patent and Trademark Office website. And so what I did was I said, okay, like this is something I think we should be able to do, and came up with this rope pulley with a head strap and then two stoppers. Okay, so the stoppers put pressure on those spots in your neck that are kind of sore, the upper part of the neck. Oftentimes people feel pain in that suboccipital area that refers up or shoots behind the eye. If you don't feel that, it's probably a bit sensitive. Most people that I assess the upper part of the neck, there is quite a bit of sensitivity there. And so so the pressure needing to be applied to the upper part of the neck with those two stoppers, and then the headband and the pulleys are what allows you to rotate without engaging your neck, okay, which is important. And so what I did was at the time, I just created with wood this really rough-looking prototype of this device. And this patient, unfortunately, like I don't think ever potentially got the benefit of even trying the prototype, because there's like months in between here, and she had already left. But the idea stuck with me, and I wanted to figure this out. So created this prototype and laid down on it, used it, and was like, wow, like this, it actually works. And so from there, the prototype of like applying pressure, and it felt similar to when someone would work on my neck. From there, I said, okay, here's the idea. I'm going to condense like 6 years, but wrote the patent for it, worked with a few different engineers, manufacturers to get it to the point of where it is today, which is a very durable like piece of, it's metal, it's plastic, but it's something that should last you a long, long time. And it has two stoppers that are adjustable, because one of the problems, or one of the tricks, was getting it so it allows different sized people, different sized necks. It allows it to work for just about everyone. And so the stoppers are adjustable. And then also the pulleys on the side, if you pull it up, look at a picture, they can go up or down. All right. So the different functionalities of it, like there's not too many moving pieces, but the stoppers should be adjusted in and out, in or out. And once you find the right width that kind of matches your neck, and when you lay down on it, tuck your chin a little, you feel a little bit of pressure in those slightly sensitive spots. Now, when you look at it, it looks like a torture device. Like it doesn't look comfortable at all, or like something that you want, just to be transparent. But when you lay on it, it just puts a light pressure through your neck. So even though those stoppers look really tall, believe it or not, when you lie down, there's still about like 4 or 5 inches between the floor and where that spot in your neck is. And so those stoppers had to be pretty tall. Okay. So we measured that based on like, when I do the technique, how tall are my fingers? And how does that relate to like how tall the stopper needs to be? So that's what you're looking at when you see those two things sticking up. Those should put pressure on your neck. And then we have the pulleys. Okay. So the pulleys are these little things that swivel on either side, and they can go up and down, up or down to adjust. So once you have the stoppers adjusted just right and you lay on it and there's pressure there, then you move to the pulleys. Now, if the pulleys are up, that's going to be more of a direct, like rotational force. All right. So the line of pull is more level with where the head strap is. So the rope going up to your head. So it pulls you directly into rotation, if you can picture that. If you have the pulleys down, it's going to be rotation with a little bit of nodding. All right. So the idea here was that the two restrictions that people typically have when they have a headache or a migraine are rotation. Okay. So C1 and C2. And then it's the head sitting on the first bone is nodding. So most people have a forward head position, and then the suboccipital area, the head sitting on the first bone, it gets kind of tight and irritated. And so if I could create something that allows you to improve rotation, but also can change the angle of pull so that when you pull both, you're kind of forced into this nodding motion, again, with your neck relaxed, like your neck can't be doing the work. The pulley, the rope system has to be doing the work. So if you move the pulleys down, you'll get more of a nodding motion as you rotate, okay? Now, you can utilize it both ways. So you can have the pulleys up higher, and you might feel more of a sensitivity, maybe even reproduction of the headache. Like it might get into that spot better with it up higher. Or you can go down lower where the rotation, it feels like it's pulling you down, which is going to hit on some of that nodding motion. All right, so the device is intended to hopefully be intuitive. For a lot of people it is. For some people it requires some education, which hopefully this podcast is going to help with that. But the device should be utilized in a way where you lay on it, you tuck your chin a little bit, your knees should be bent up when you're laying on the ground. And of course, have the grippy pad down and on a firm surface so that it's not slipping around all over the place. But when you lay on it and you tuck your chin, you should feel just like a little bit of that pressure. It shouldn't be too uncomfortable. It shouldn't be like, I don't want to even lay like this. It should be a little bit of a chin tuck, and you feel those stoppers push up against your neck, okay? Because we want those stoppers to basically be in place before you start rotating. So when those stoppers are in place, you've got the head strap on, you take the Velcro patch, you put it on the front of the head strap, and then you got the two ropes, and you're in charge of where your neck's going and how much pressure you're applying, okay? So if you want to focus on the right, I like to pull a little bit with both, so you keep that nodding motion, and then you pull a little bit harder to the right or whatever direction, but we'll say to the right, and that pressure builds on that right side, okay? So what often happens when we're working someone in clinic is that sensitive spot will maybe reproduce a little bit of a headache. Now, if you're feeling that and it's like, wow, it feels like a headache, that's not a bad thing. That means that we're addressing a really sore muscle. Okay, it's kind of like someone coming up behind you and like grabbing your shoulders and starting to massage you, and you're like, wow, like that one feels so tight. Like that's an indication that something needs to be worked on. Okay, so if you have a really sensitive spot or it shoots into your head, that means that that's an area that if we can work through it, it'll be therapeutic and we can get it to calm down. So you feel that, and what you want to do is focus on mobility. So you want to apply a force enough so it feels like your neck's turning a little bit, and maybe you hit a point where it feels like it wants to stop. Now that spot where it wants to stop, you can take it up to that point. I'd probably encourage try to push a little bit past it. Okay. Now the idea is to improve mobility. So basically what you're finding is you're turning your head, it's putting pressure through the upper part of your neck, and then it just hits this point where it wants to stop. Now that's as much motion as you have, and it's sore and it's angry. It should have a lot more than that though. And so we want to therapeutically push through it to stretch it. Okay. So we're basically teaching that joint, hey, you can move again. And we're going to gently, gingerly, push through it, increase the amount of tension just for a little bit and then back off. And we just keep doing that. It's almost like we're working through that joint, teaching it that it can move again. I would spend a minute or so on one side and then hop to the other side. And you might have the same experience. It might be okay, you have to kind of reposition so the stopper gets right on the other side. And then you're pulling and you're feeling the pressure increase. Oftentimes people will have more sensitivity one side over the other. That may match with your headache presentation. So it may be something that, if you have a right-sided headache, typically the right side of your neck may be tighter or vice versa, okay? Now, this isn't necessarily use it if you have a specific type of headache. It's really any type of headache, any type of migraine presentation, neck tension. If your neck just feels stiff, it's intended to improve mobility in the neck. Now, there are possibly scenarios where I'd say this isn't necessarily the device for you, the majority of people are going to be fine. If it's something where you're like, I want to potentially buy it, but I'm not sure because I had like a fusion or something like that, feel free to reach out to us and we'll guide you. But if you like had a fusion up high in your neck, or excuse me, if you have some other joint or ongoing condition that you're concerned about, either consult with your doctor or reach out to us. But for the most part, it's going to be a very safe device for most people and helpful for restoring neck mobility, which in turn is going to be likely the underlying cause of a lot of the head facial symptoms that you're experiencing. So the whole reason for this podcast is to bring clarity around this device. Now, I created it. We sell it. We're a business. And so we have to make money to keep going. If you're a listener to this podcast and you've benefited from it, this would be a way to support us, to keep us functioning. Not that we're like going to stop anytime soon, but it's a way to say thank you. Okay, you can interact with us in this way. Okay, it's not the whole shebang, but it's something. The device is $150 and you can buy it on Amazon. We'll put the link in our show notes. The main driver, though, is that I believe that this device can help a lot of people with headaches and migraines. And I want you guys to understand it. I want you to buy it. And so for $150, if you can get this device, understand it, use it, and it starts helping you, there's incredible value there. I started this, and the first time I laid down and used it, I thought this is going to help. And every time I've used it since, I think, man, like I've had headaches and I get them to go away. I've had patients that have migraines and lay on it and they get them to go away. Like having a device where you can lay on it and your migraines go away, that's pretty incredible. And so I want to see how many people this can help. And so hopefully this podcast is the encouragement that you need to go and purchase it for yourself. Again, if you have questions or concerns or anything like that, reach out and my staff will try to direct you, answer questions. If there's questions that they can't answer, it'll probably come to me, and then I'll try to be of assistance. So we want to reduce as many barriers as possible in this for you having a SAM device in your own house. Thank you all so much for listening to the Headache Doctor podcast week in and week out. We've got a lot of you that have just said some really encouraging things to us recently, and like this podcast has been life-changing. It's really given you hope and encouragement, and we want you to continue to share that, spread it, provide us with a 5-star review so that pushes the algorithm forward. Buy the SAM device either from our website or on Amazon, and that would be incredibly helpful as we continue on this journey to educate and empower everyone with headaches and migraines so you can break free from a life of fear of your next headache or migraine and dependence on medication. I'll see you next week.